Hey everyone, it's Kyle Walgren, and this is the Business of Education. This week's episode, I got to visit with a guy by the name of Joey Princz, who spent the last 25 years in marketing. The things he taught me in this short 30-minute conversation are unreal. I think anybody that wants to dive into marketing and see where it's going from and where it's headed, this will be an episode for you. And if you guys are interested in finding out more about Joey, hit up his website, getwrecked.com. Wrecking Ball is an amazing company, and Joey's an even more amazing. So tune in to this episode and let us know your feedback in the comments. Hey everyone, thanks for joining into the podcast. We are the Business of Education. Today my guest is Joey Princz, one of the people that have gone through and watched the digital marketing world change from the beginning to what it is now. I'm actually super excited, Joey, to talk to you. Eliana, the young gal that made the introduction or facilitated this for me, sent me a couple podcasts that really allowed me to dive into what you've done, what you've gone through. So I'm looking forward to having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here and to discuss everything we're about to talk about, because digital is just amazing even in today, 25 years later. It's amazing.
Yeah. So Joey, you've got 25-year career, starting in traditional television marketing, growing through the early parts of digital marketing, and now to the scroll and swipe marketing that you talk about now. Tell us, some of the things that you think that have changed, and I'm going totally off script because she's laid this all out for me, but the things that you've seen that have changed for the good and that have changed for the bad. There's just so many things that brought my attention.
So it's, now that I'm thinking about it, it's actually closer to probably 30 years now.
Oh, wow.
The things that have changed, I put my first video on the web by accident in 1996, which brings it closer to 30 years. And the first time we did that by accident, I said, "Oh my God, this is going to change everything!" Right? There was no YouTube, there was no Hulu. You could barely get a banner ad to load, want to load a web page with an image on it. It took 5 to 10 seconds per image. And here we are today, where you can stream to any device. This is like your first screen in 4K. And what we used to take for granted years ago, to be able to do certain things, you can now do in the palm of your hand as long as you have some type of connection. So the change really has been a different kind of progress. Almost, there's people who are afraid of the change, especially as AI is growing. But we equate it to, when the phone came out, it's going to replace the telegraph. When radio came out, it's going to replace print. When movies came out, silent movies, and then regular movies with audio, that's going to replace theater. Right? It all keeps going along. Same with television. Television, video, came out, but then music, cable came out, MTV, and the first video played was, video killed the radio star. But all right, it's all progressive along the way. But you have Spotify, so you still have your radio stars. So it's really along the way, people to be able to address the changes, accept the changes, and rather than fight it, embrace it, and to further enhance how they can live life, with these certain type of entities that have come up throughout the last 3 decades. It's crazy.
And audio is actually making a pretty big return, especially during COVID, with products like Clubhouse and the podcast type scene becoming really popular. And I probably get most of my information from podcasts now. I think that's my go-to source just to hear things. And that's where what got me super excited to talk to you was a podcast that you had done, and it was the one where you were actually looking at that truck website that with that little truck that would go through the obstacles and stuff like that. And it just
yes,
that looked so simple, and it took, like you were saying in that thing, it was such a simple idea that you guys did so long ago, but now it's starting to come back. And I'm like, I haven't seen anything like this for years. It's such an amazing idea to simplify things. And so
you nailed it with the swipe and scroll, because what used to be a great website or experience or app over time has become swipe and scroll, where people are bored. As long as you can get sucked into TikTok or Reels for a good 2, 3, 4 hours on a rainy Saturday afternoon. But then what are you left with? And you have all this knowledge, but when you can actually get immersed with the experience and touch and feel and do, those experiences started to come back. It's called 3JS. Getting too technical, is the library that allows us to do this, but to create these immersive experiences and games, that's where we're trying to slowly bring some of the content and some of our clients back to. Not metaverse, That's a whole separate world, but just
Right.
through a web browser to be able to, to engage with that. Like the old saying, "What comes around goes around." Here, I even laugh as talking about how things come back around, and got some records. Like Barnes and Noble has vinyl, and this is vinyl I've had since the '90s or '80s. Some of these records that had a collection, but all of a sudden we have to get some Jane's Addiction for those who like heavy metal. Um, it's all starting to slowly come back, and now I think the people are so bored of swiping and scrolling, no matter what the age is. It's time to get back to that connectivity, especially I know you're in the education space, in the younger space. Watching my 4-year-old nephew navigate an iPad or iPad Pro, even better, where he has this
Mm.
nice big 14-inch screen, and he's zooming, swiping through, looking for the right game. He gets into the game, and then he's immersed in the experience.
Mhm.
But the 7-year-old, will sit there and TikTok, but then I look over, she's more interested in what the 4-year-old is doing while he's playing a game and having that interaction. So I think it's slowly coming back.
This whole thing, like just seeing that podcast today, I like it just got me so excited. And how you were talking about how it was coming back, I actually sent Eliana a message yesterday, and I'm like, what if we tried to like resurface the original viral videos? And the thing that like brought that to me was like the Harlem Shake. You remember that whole trend, office trend? So it came across and stumbled across. I'm like, this was gold back in the day. And now I don't know if it would get anybody's attention, but what are we've gone over briefly, the immersive marketing and how that's probably going to make a comeback. But what are some of the things that you've seen over the last 30 years where you're glad that it's gone? Thank God that trend's over.
um, Black text on a white type website. If we're sticking strictly digital, like the simple websites from the early 2000s, late 90s, where it was just horrible to use. It was just purely informational. Like that type of trend gone. What we don't like. I would say it's not even what we don't like. It's what we do like just the whole
Right.
evolution of being able to do more with less. We don't like the days of having servers where you had to have physical servers because when we would launch some of these large campaigns, the sites would crash because there wasn't enough capacity. Even though a client might spend two, three, $400,000 on a server farm, it wasn't enough. Where we have the cloud today, so we can launch something. We don't miss the days where you couldn't easily test. Does the messaging work? Is a button in the right place? Do the colors work? Is this the right content? Well, we can do A/B testing and multivariant testing to see what's the optimal experience for the customer before we launch the whole product or initiative or website. I miss yeah, it's more what I miss, not what I don't miss. I miss the creative freedom that a lot of the larger agencies in general have kind of missed out on or don't bring to the market anymore for television or just
Right.
campaigns in general. We really, the jingles that used to be, the taglines that used to be. I mean, Burger King's been doing a great job with it now recently. With Have It Your Way. But other than that, like where's the beef during the days
Right.
of Wendy's? I'm
Perfect.
aging myself now. Or
Got melt.
BK, yeah, BK Have It Your Way. That's the jingle. That's the only one I can think of now. That's really current. So that I
Uh,
miss. I miss the creativeness.
there was an insurance jingle that gets caught in my head every once in a while. Oh, the
Oh,
Liberty,
Liberty, Liberty.
Liberty. Yeah.
Yep, Liberty, Liberty
That's
has
about
it.
the only one I can think of now that you're saying that, though. Great
Yeah, or
doing those.
time to make the coffee.
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts back in the day. So those types of things, I think are what's missed. Um, yeah.
You touched briefly. So a lot of the people that our audience comes in, they're young startup founders. You touched briefly on like doing uh, A/B testing and the importance of where a button is or where a swipe is or any of that stuff. When did that stuff really start coming into play? Because that wasn't there in the earlier marketing. When did you guys start seeing the change where you were able to do all these different types of testing?
We would build our own systems to do it because it didn't exist. We didn't even think about it. Technically, how it worked, it was probably in 2003, 2004, in the early days of digital. And Like, well, is this the right experience or is that the right experience? Like, we don't know. Just serve one up and look at the other one and see what people kind of engage with on a website. It was live. Like there was no let's silo this amount of traffic off. Here's your website, and so we would just flip every other person who came would get a different messaging or a different color, and then look at we had to build our own metrics because there wasn't any metrics back then either. So did they click or did they not click? How much time did they spend on that page, if you will? So a
Right.
lot of it, how we got into the industry in general was we started off more so in broadcast and advertising. With the days of Flash and Flash websites, we had these crazy creatives, crazy ideas that the marketers had from the brands, but there was no third-party API or plugin or WordPress didn't exist. You had to build everything. So we started to get into software development because the ideas we had were so far out there that you couldn't just, whip up some code and make it work. We had to take the month or two or six to actually build these platforms. So we got into the software development side in order to execute the ideas that we had, which is crazy, which is very different because many software engineers historically have been, blue shirt, khaki pants type of people. They're like, no, we're a marketing, advertising agency by design, but we focus on software development and it's going to be crazy. So hold on for the ride. And those that loved it thrived in the environment. And those that were like, this is not for me, because we broke every rule possible going against software development to make things work. Um, we were not cheap, um, but we were fast and efficient, and you got what you wanted. So we fit the two of the three buckets.
Yeah.
Fast, good, and cheap. It was always good. It was usually fast, but it wasn't cheap to do that back then because the smartest of the group of people were expensive, staffing wise and cost wise as a company to own. Human capital in this area in digital is expensive, and that's
With
where is important as
with the
well.
growth in digital and like what I just heard you say was like how complex the marketing company had to be cutting edge and successful when it started to what it is now. Now a lot of it, outside of like the creative aspect is really like plug and play APIs, chat GDP, you know. Do you feel like a lot of the creativity has gone as technologies advance?
Yes and no. I think that marketing in general in the digital world has become a commodity where you have thousands of small agencies or mid-size that do the same thing, which makes it very difficult for them to differentiate themselves. Where you have sign up on WordPress or on Wix, even as crazy as it would be, and there's a market for that, where the high end marketplace for creatives still has that need where I cannot do this simply on a Wix website, nor can I do this for like the local 3 or 4 pizza shop restaurant. So when you have the harder creatives to execute, still need the complex solutions to solve it, and many of them are custom, where you can't just you can see it on the screen something happened, but in order to get that flow, like the car one that I guess we can show a video of later, cut that in, but um, those take time to build and design a storyboard out the whole flow of yes, it's still marketing, but what's the end goal? What are we trying to sell? Or is it just pure branding? Or is there any type of interaction? So the more complex marketing, branding material type things, that still takes time to do the creative. But the regular throw a banner right up on Google SEO search to a landing page, it's all cookie cutter at this point.
Oh, easy. And I think that people have like gotten used to that cookie cutter stuff. And one of the things that we thrive on are that I push our marketing team to do here is to make sure that we do nothing cookie cutter. Like I don't want to blend in to the crowd anymore. So to get to talk to somebody like yourself who's gone from beginning to traditional television marketing to what it is now, I'm just like so excited to learn. Um, you grew up in marketing. Your family was a part of marketing. Kind of walk us through that. What was it like growing up around some of the great
Oh man.
early pioneers? Your dad being one of them.
Yeah, so Kyle, man, that world was I didn't understand it as a kid. Those who have watched the Mad Men series, it is true. Pretty much that while it's fiction, it's not fiction. It was crazy parties, crazy ideas. Let's just say I didn't understand why in some of the editing rooms there were mirrored tables in the back of the rooms back then, in the '80s. But it was the creativity was just endless. But the thing that was the coolest thing I thought back then growing up in that world, specifically in television, was you have 30 seconds to tell a story, 900 frames of video or film. And if you could convince somebody to buy a product or interact with the brand in 30 seconds, right, that was amazing. And before you had the computer to start editing and re-editing, and even on your phone, like you can edit endlessly, you have to really think about the craft of what the camera people shooting a film, how they're going to edit that, those short 2 second, 3, 4 second segments. And then even the sound, everything was so simple, but in order to do multiple layers of film or video, you had to plan this out. And the copywriting, there was no computer to lay your copy. It was physically printed on an art card. And if you didn't like the kerning of the lettering, you had to physically take an X-Acto blade, cut it out, with glue spray and print it and cut it and glue it back onto a board. So all of these things, like the actual essence of the craft, and sitting there learning that, making the transition to digital is a lot of the principles we apply here to the current staff in the digital age, where we're like, I can look across the screen, or my partner, now many of the creatives, and if things in Photoshop or Figma on the screen are misaligned by a few pixels, we'll see it from across the room, and I'm looking at that design, like, it's not balanced. Something is off by like a little bit in this way. Like, there's no way. And they start taking bets, and they put it up on the screen, and they say, shit, he was right. It's off by like 4 pixels, because it goes back to the analog training of having to cut out letters and make sure they're straight and even and curved the right way. But yeah, in the beginning, learning the craft of telling a story in 30 seconds was phenomenal, and doing that until the mid 90s, when AOL was really the big precipice right there to get people onto the web. And when that happened, and it's like, holy shit, you can actually have two-way communication with people. Like, they can search for something and they can get what they want. And you can give it to them rather than waiting for, God knows how many multi-million-dollar media buy to have your TV commercial for Coke spread across, only 5 channels back then, maybe cable if you're lucky, for 30 seconds in certain markets. And that was like the next revelation. Like, wow, this is really going to change everything. Internet it's people like that, never going to happen. We looked at it the opposite way and embracing it, saying, how can we take this? We were too early to the game as well for certain things, where we did some crazy pitches. One example would be for Viacom, where they were a current past client for my parents' company, my father's company, doing a lot of work with MTV and VH1. And after we put the videos on the web in the late 90s, pitched the board where we said we want to digitize the entire catalog of MTV videos and VH1 videos and put them on the web so people can watch them on their computer. And then, who would want to watch a video on their computer? You guys are nuts. Get the F out of my conference room. Thank you very much. And it wasn't until probably 2001, 2002 that many of the larger brands started to embrace the even early days of broadband to put video and content onto the web. And that's really what got our name out. My prior agency, where we were one of the first early companies to understand how to put video on the web and to use it, where HBO boxing, either Mayweather or Holyfield, we had, I think, 3 or 4 hours of content of fight highlights and interviews on the web back in, I think it might have been 2000 or 2001. Nobody was doing that back then. And just pushing that envelope of creative ideas. How can we engage with people and the customer? It's always been the theme all the way through today. So when we get to, what is today look like compared, we're almost in the next iteration. Like, that was Web 2.0 when social media came out. And I cringe when I hear 2.0, because there's never a 2.1 or 2.2 or 2.5. So we're going to Web 3 now with Metaverse, which nobody hears about at all anymore. Yeah. So it's just a constant iteration. I think the metaverse in general, I think, is a big fail. I think augmented reality, and Apple is spot on with vision, where Facebook changed their whole company to Meta. A lot of people bet billions of dollars on it, including Magic Leap, which is actually down here in Florida. We've got billions of dollars of investments with a product that never really launched. But I think Apple and the visionaries there, with having the true augmented reality vision even though it's a $4,500 price point once you're done with options, as opposed to Magic Leap, which I think is 10 or 11,000, it brings it to the masses to look at experiences that can help people. Although Oculus does as well, but it's a little bit different with a closed lens as opposed to the open lens. You can have the augmented experience. But I think that I know I'm going all over the place here through through the whole history, but the
No,
change is endless.
this is good, and you're kind of touching on a few things that are I find really interesting. You said that you go in and talk about putting content online, and there who's going to buy or watch something on a computer, to now the idea that we were all stuck in our houses for 2 years and the metaverse blew up for a weekend, and every Joe and major brand was looking to buy real estate and something that lasted until the first time we could leave our houses. So what do you think what do you think changed so much? Do you think that now when people see the trends in marketing change, they just don't want to be the last to the table, so they move faster now? Or because you talk from two different extremes, where you really had to sell it and make somebody a believer, so now they'll believe almost anything.
Yeah, I think CMOs are in a tough position right now, regardless of the size of the company, because there's so many avenues to get the messaging out and so many platforms that the ad spends are ludicrous if you're not targeting the right platform or medium, or even the right customer. That The metaverse, I think, still has its place, regardless if it was COVID or not, where it can actually help people. It's just that I think having a screen on your face for way too long for the masses is just not something that is enjoyable. Which is
Right.
why vision is a little bit different, having the augmented portion of it where you can do either solid or opaque. Yeah, that's the same thing, clear or opaque. Sorry, but some of the ideas that we were dabbling in with metaverse or Oculus, COVID or not, were people that are bedridden, that cannot travel, that can't really get out anymore and experience life or things. At least it brings a sense of, you can't touch it or smell it, but you can hear it and see it. And those who are, for example, someone who's dealing with cancer and is in the hospital and can't leave,
Mhm.
that they can strap on an Oculus and go to the zoo or go
Oh yeah, I
to a
never thought of
beach
that.
Riviera. So, to bring these experiences to people that are terminally ill, that's a better word, sorry, it doesn't have to just be cancer, that are terminally ill or bedbound or wheelchair bound, that really can't get to other places and experiences, to bring these types of experiences to them. Um, Even for sports and entertainment, where this is a little bit futuristic, but you can watch your game on the screen. But if you want it to actually be in the 50-yard line, and when you put the vision on, that you're there looking around, at least 180 degrees, that you can be part of the experience. And these types of things, there's definitely a marketplace for it, aside from learning how to use operationally other equipment that are more commercial. But on
Right.
the consumer side, there's definitely a place for it that I think is still under tapped. We're getting there. Even like exercise type things where people don't want to exercise, it needs to be gamified. So when Wii was a big thing from Nintendo, they had
Yeah.
the Wii exercise mat, and people would interact with the nunchucks and do things like that. That kind of carried over to Oculus a little bit, where there's a game called Barroom Brawl or Barroom Fight, where you actually get into a fight with people in a bar. You're encouraged to pick fights, and you sit there punching people in a bar. And while it's a goofy game, some of my staff that actually use it, they use it for exercise, and they break a sweat by the time they're done playing this game for 15 minutes because they're boxing and fighting, but in virtual reality.
hmm
So
I
it's
haven't seen that one, but I have played the boxing one, and you're 100% on point. Like, it is an amazing work.
so yeah, so those types of things, I think there's place for it, but everybody buying land in metaverse. Um, well, put it this way: Second Life is still around. It's still active. The website. I don't know if you're familiar with Second Life or not.
Yeah.
Second Life,
Yep.
all right. So Second Life was the first interactive virtual reality platform that people could buy land in, and everybody. It was the biggest rage, and everybody's buying land, including advertising agencies. And there was this whole huge big stunt where I don't know if it was one of the Omnicom or WPP companies bought land in virtual life, and they opened up the first virtual advertising agency. And I was like laughing because, all right, so they're doing the same thing, but they're doing in Second Life. And again, this is before you had Zoom and GoToMeeting and WebEx.
Right.
So to their merit, it was different. But the platform is still running. But how does that make it different than Oh my God, I forgot some good platforms where we have some land in also, in some of the modern platforms. So I don't know. There's a place for it, but I think as COVID kind of has relaxed, that I don't. We haven't heard about metaverse really since November, October, 2022, and that happens to actually coincide when OpenAI released the floodgates for ChatGPT.
Right.
Ironic.
No, I actually like dawned on me the other day. I'm like, I wonder where my MetaMask password is. I haven't looked at these crappy NFTs that I lost thousands of dollars at in a long time. I should see if they're still sitting there worth nothing. But it was like such a small part of my life. I didn't even want to go find the password for it. So, but, I heard something from, another marketing leader, Gary Vee, that the Web3 is going to come back, just like, Web 2.0 and the .com bubble. And, so maybe I'll get lucky and someday that stuff will be worth something. But we'll
I hope
see.
so. I'm with you.
Wrecking Ball, that your company, Wrecking Ball. Tell us about what you guys do in your approach. I just think that there's so much stuff that I can learn, and we're not going to have enough time to go over it all. But tell us about Wrecking Ball.
Sure. So I exited a prior agency that I was with my former partner for about 10 years, and did not know what I wanted to do next. It was a soul searching moment for a few weeks. And over those few weeks, decided that I want to stay in digital. We're makers, we're creators, we're crafters. And that was in 2007 when Web 2 was just coming out. It wasn't called Web 2 then, but Facebook was just launching.
Netscape was
And
the biggest thing.
no, we were past Netscape. That was already Firefox, I think, at that
Okay.
point. But it was, yeah, and Facebook just came out. The iPhone just launched, and Twitter just came out as well, right around those times. And a lot. That's when Flash was still big. The websites were still built mostly on Flash for the experience. And many companies and brands were leaving Flash because they couldn't get SEO anymore. They couldn't get the metrics out. The web was becoming more standardized, if you will, where it wasn't the Wild West anymore, and the accountants wanted to make sure that the dollars spent were not that had merit. So decided I want to stay in digital, and it was I think 2:43 in the morning on June 3rd or June 4th or June 6th maybe had the revelation of the name Wrecking Ball, and the premise behind it was, or is I should say, that every company has a digital property, destination, footprint, flagship, whatever it might be digitally, it's there. And God knows how much money and effort and forethought was put in, and late nights and boardroom fights and arguments, really essentially to make the best product of what it could be for the day at that time. Doesn't mean it worked, doesn't mean it works or it works anymore. It doesn't mean that it solves a problem. And the best part of starting something new is taking the best of what's there, knocking the rest down, and
Right.
making something new. And that's where
I
really the
love the
wrecking
name.
ball
Just
comes
for
in.
the record, I was like, wow, it grabs your attention for sure.
That was the second part because back then also a lot of the fun independent smaller digital shops or even larger. You had Razorfish, you had AKQA, you had Big Spaceship, iChameleon. Just these funky wonky names that were a little bit different because it also made good tchotchkes, like the coffee mugs and like the hustle. We have Rise and Grind. We have a whole series of stuff. We should open a Shopify store. All the stuff we have here. The name was important because it's a little bit edgy and catchy. And as a startup agency, you kind of need that in general. Even though it's been 17 years already, it makes people laugh. Even though we wanted wreckingball.com, the person who owns it still wants a good six-figure amount for it 17 years later. Even though I said you missed your window with Miley Cyrus with her song and Bruce
Yeah,
Springsteen with his
that was
song.
the first thing that came to mind when I heard it. Like the first
Yep.
thing. Did that drive traffic for you guys at all? Was there anything to piggyback there?
No, it made it worse because we went from like page 1 or 2 to like page 12 or 13 on
Oh yeah,
Google,
I bet.
and still are, but that's okay. And really the premise was just helping companies solve problems or tell their story by using digital methods and technology. So initially, the earlier days of the company, we were more of a branding agency, um, a lot more on the front end website with less software development. but then came down time to some of the harder challenges that our clients wanted us to solve, and looked at it. We can use it. We can use design. Like before there was design thinking, we were doing design thinking. Before there were sprints and agile, scrum, and all these terminologies, we were just. It's called common sense for
I
us.
like that.
And going back to the TV days, where if we know that on February 14th for Valentine's Day we have commercials that need to run, that air date's not changing no matter what. So we need to be done by the 10th or 11th so we can ship the commercials out, because you had to send them on tape back then in order
Right.
for FedEx to make it to the stations. The same principles apply to what we do digitally, where we can iterate forever on something. We have one of our slogans here is never done. NVRDUN, like the Run DMC logo, is never done, because some of the platforms that we've been working on have lived on for 14, 15 years, and we keep making them better. When you code something the right way, you can always iterate on it and make it better. But when we got into the harder challenges of what to do, it really came down to still tell the story, even though it's software. It's still something that's creative. So how a programmer will create something, you can put 5 programmers in a room, all do the same thing, but how they do it is different. And some stories are better than others. Same goes with how we code. So over the years, I've really learned to solidify solid methodologies that allow us to bring products to market faster. And as marketing and advertising became more of a commodity, as we already touched on, we look to differentiate ourselves over the years by, we'll still build platforms or experiences, really what's important. But at the same time, looking into creating digital products, and let the people who want to have the marketing stuff do that marketing stuff and work with Google and all the boring stuff. So apologies for that. But where we thrive is in really solving the hard challenges that keeps up the C-suite at night. What is it where we become the special ops team for a lot of these global brands, where they have amazing talent in-house, but they can't get the extra 3, 4, 5% out of them to do things that are impossible. I say impossible because we have when we do a few times a year speaking engagements at CMO summits, CIO summits. We have one coming up next week, and the topic is the art of the impossible made possible. When people tell us it can't be done, we'll find a way to make it done. Or if not, 95% of the way there, whatever the requirements documents are, or the dream or the vision that he or she had to get to that experience.
Well, those are the people that change
really
the world, right?
Yeah. We're not unique. We'll never use the word unique, because that's more of like Apple is unique with creating the iPhone, if you will, although there was stuff before that. Or Tesla's unique, creating the first electric car, or Alexander Graham Bell with the telephone. That's unique. We're very different in how we approach things. We remove the politics as well from a lot of our larger clients, where people might have their own agenda, if you will, for better or worse, to the detriment of the customer at the end of the day. And we remove all that and just tell it how it is. And that's really what gets us into like, oh, wow, these guys are not full of shit. And we can actually pull this off. How do we do it? And then come up with a plan.
That's so awesome. You touched early on that you had 30 seconds to tell a story, and marketing is really about storytelling. So I want to ask 2 questions around this. But you said early on that you had 30 seconds to tell a story to get a customer to buy. Now, what do you think that time limit is? Do you think it's 3, 4, 5 seconds? Like, how much do you think the needle's moved in the ability to engage in something in the last 30 years?
Yeah, so let's say that YouTube has a skip button at 6 seconds by design.
There you go.
It's your 5 to 6 second mark. We know this also just from the research that we've done years ago. Once people started to lose their attention, and it wasn't even TikTok or Reels or YouTube that did it before. It was Vine, Vine videos.
I remember Vine.
That the whole thing was a 6 second video. Also going back to the data scientists that probably did all their measurement.
Twitter owns Vine, actually, don't they?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it was Twitter that bought them. And that's where you're lucky if you have that now. It might not even need to be that. It might be a hook that gets someone interested from a piece of copy, something on the screen that they see as they're swiping through. It might be as much as 1 or 2 seconds now. It might be 10 frames, half a second, third of a second of video. Whatever it is, especially in the scroll and swipe generation, what's going to get them interested on that first screen or the poster image. that comes up, and that's why there's a lot of people that clickbait, right? That's what
Hmm.
it comes down to. It could be something really interesting, but when you click it, it's all it's all nonsense behind the scenes. But I think in general, the 6 second rule is what gets people hooked. You have the I don't know if it's Harry's or there's one agency that specializes in comedic type videos that they have it down to a science how to get someone hooked right away, and they'll stay and watch. Oh, Old Spice.
Oh yeah,
Old Spice
yeah.
is doing it really well.
The
Um,
the Super Bowl commercials seem to figure that out too. With that a week away, or, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but the Super Bowl commercials seem to get that figured out too, how to keep them engaged in that short period of time. I think, and the video that I liked the most last year, or the year before, was the Coinbase commercial, where all it had was a QR code on the screen. Coinbase, I think it was,
yep.
and it was like the simplest thing in the whole world. And I was like, that was the best commercial, in my opinion. That was the best commercial
Yeah.
of the whole weekend, and it was so simple, so simple.
Like, what is that thing? Oh, it's a QR code. Well, that's one of the blessings of COVID that came out of COVID is people understanding what a QR code is now.
I guess, yeah.
Because 3 years ago, 4 years, COVID's 4 years now, 5 years ago, um, we've been using it forever, but nobody knew what it was. Or the phones weren't adapted enough, didn't have the software in it. You needed a separate QR code app,
Yep.
where the
Yeah.
Android and Apple put the QR code reader in the phone, in the camera
And
application.
game changer.
So it made it easy.
The,
But yeah, that was great, having the
we've
QR code.
we've seen technology
Sorry.
change, we've seen marketing change. Now, trend words, Gen AI. Love it, hate it, better for worse. What's your opinion?
Um, if I was going to pull it off like a Gary Vee, I fucking love it. I love it. We love it. It is so revolutionary. Well, there's two sides to it.
Uh-huh.
The controversial side is who owns the copyright of the material and what's created. The artists that get affected, I agree with them, 100%. On the flip side of how we use it here at Wrecking Ball, there's a few different ways where you have your ChatGPT type of AI, which has helped a lot immensely when we're trying to solve some problems with software and code. It's almost like speaking with another coworker, and you can bounce ideas off of and see what comes back. It might not solve
Never
the
thought of
problem
it
for
being
you.
used like that.
Yeah, it might not solve the problem for you, but it might get you far enough to return ideas back of other ways to do the same thing. And that's been revolutionary for us. Where we had an issue where for about a week or so we were stuck, and once introducing ChatGPT, this goes back to when it first came, October of 22, October, November. Once OpenAI released it publicly, we're able to took about 10 hours of chatting with the bots to get a solution that would have probably taken another 2 or 3 weeks to come up with. And this is on principal engineers that have made almost everything possible. So for that aspect, it changed a lot of how we interact with it just to improve how we work on that side. On the creative side, we had a client, uh, tough client, which we love, the challenge with Glutton for Punishment, where it was pure first part of a brand new website that was supposed to be launching. And we had about 3 to 4 weeks in the budget just for creative exploration. We don't know what we want. We'll know when we see it. Was the kind of client.
That's
And
awesome.
started
I bet
working
you
with
love
one
those
of our,
clients.
we actually do. As I said, we're a glutton for punishment. Um, and the one of our principal engineers was starting to play with um, Midjourney, which is one of the generative AI platforms that creates imagery, almost like DALL-E now is for OpenAI, but DALL-E
Okay.
didn't exist back then. And he spent so much time that he really understood how to interact with it, to speak with it, if you will, to get optimal results. And every week we have like what did you do this week between the team, and different people would showcase different things. And he was showing us what he did, and I paired him up with our creative director who was working on this new account. And I said, work with the client, take a day, and from the creative side, work with the engineer and describe to him what you're looking for with the client on Zoom. We're all in different areas around the country. And in about 6 hours, they came up with so many different designs and layouts and where things should go that were pretty complex that it got us about 90 to 95% of the way there for what the client was looking for instead of 3 weeks. We couldn't have done this much work in 3 weeks without having like 10 or 15 designers working on it just to physically position different elements on the screen, hundreds of elements in different colors or different tonalities. And that was revolutionary. Whereas for certain parts of the process, not that we're using it so much for the final pieces, but at least for inspiration to help to mold what something should, or could become. So in that aspect, it's been phenomenal. I'm not thrilled with it in the areas of audio generative AI, where we can clone people's voices, because we've done some spoofs on some friends where we've actually, people didn't know it really wasn't them. In a friends group, when we get on a phone call and have all these like 30 different pre-canned MP3 files ready to hit play, and we'll hit play and they think it's somebody else, they think it's their friend on the line, but don't know it's computer generated. And the same with the video AI stuff that's taking some of the work away from some of the creative people that are really, really good in regards to graphics. That it's really saving time to market. But also in the video AI side, I've seen some amazing things that would take weeks or months for humans to even try to create a concept. So it's a catch-22 where the stuff that people are losing jobs for the cookie cutter stuff, that bothers me and I feel bad. But for the stuff on the improvement side of doing things that the computers can crush the numbers so fast and producing beautiful visuals, that's been amazing. So it's
on the voice thing. I heard a podcast one day. My wife showed it to me, and it was a Joe Rogan podcast done with Logan Paul, and it was all through fake audio voices. Yeah. And it took me a minute, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can tell, but it took probably like, I bet you 20 minutes to pick out certain little things where you're like, okay, this isn't real kind of thing. But right off the hook, there was something about it. You're like, that made you feel off, but it took a while for me to be like, this isn't real. And it took a good while for me to be like, this isn't real. I think there was something, and I listened to enough Joe Rogan podcasts where I'm like, Joe would have had more emotion in his voice when he said it, I think is what queued it up where I started.
I'll send you some examples after. But think about this, it's only been like 6 to 9 months that it's been out on the marketplace, audio AI and the technologies that people have been using. So what's going to happen in a year?
No, that's important stuff. Joey, I could have a conversation with you forever. I've learned so much already, and we didn't even touch the questions. So thanks, Eliana, for writing these all out, but we didn't get to them. So I'm guessing there's probably going to need to be a part 2 one day, but I learned so much. For any of our audience that wants to find out more about you or your company, where would they go to find that?
GetWrecked.com.
GetWrecked.com. So that's where I would go. I know that I'm super interested in seeing where this can go for us and the relationship. There's a lot of good ideas, and just check out some of the other podcasts that Joey's on, because it changed my day to day. Clearly, because Eliana built this whole question thing that we didn't even get to, but man, the world's changing, and you guys have your finger on it. So.
For your audience, hit me up on LinkedIn, JPRINCZ. LinkedIn, happy to answer questions, connect with you, help however we can. Become a servant leader over the years, so I'd love to help people out. The whole team here does, so no strings attached.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure that Eliana puts the information in the description boxes as well on how to find you, because I've learned so much, and it's, like I said, it's been 30 minutes, and I wish I could spend probably another 3 hours. But Joey, thank you so much for
my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Kyle. Great to be here.
Thank you.